Yo, what's up, Sam?
What's happening?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm fantastic.
That's great, man. Let's get into who we got today, man. We got a friend of mine. Always great seeing friends again. From the music business program at NYU, when we both went there at the same time, Danny Chang. Danny Chang started his career at The Orchard, which is a distribution company for those who don't know. We get into his career there during the episode. And, you know, like a good amount of people that I know, he switched from music to tech. So we go from him working in the music industry to his music adjacent positions. The first one being at Tumblr, the first one in tech being at Tumblr, and the second one being director of partnerships at GIPHY. I think GIFs are an interesting thing to go through and to talk about at this point because they're embedded so deeply into our everyday lives. I think it's not something that the music industry has delved in enough. And luckily we get into some really unique and insightful ways to use GIFs for visibility and to really push forward artists' careers. So what'd you think, Sam?
Yeah, no, I liked it a lot. I think Danny's a super smart guy. His experience working at GIPHY, The Orchard, across the board brought a lot of very valuable insight and perspective. I think when it comes to GIFs, I think we really kind of speak to how it's just a very unique way to engage your audience and help your audience amplify their fandom. And turn your fans into kind of megaphones to help you get more fans. So I think hearing his story as to how other artists were creative in using it was valuable. And I think just to the extent that you guys can be creative and figuring out fun ways to leverage, whether it's GIPHY or other technology and social platforms, whatever it may be, just really using these as mechanisms to be creative and creatively engage and reach fans is always really fun to see. So really excited to dive into this episode. Also super grateful for Bands in Town, recording live again from the Bands in Town studio. Incredible space, incredible app.
Yeah, I mean, I use Bands in Town every day. I'll say that literally. I use it again today. You know?
Yeah, it's funny too. I'm just looking at like artists in their tour websites and how easily you can embed all of the tour dates for an upcoming like tour run on a website.
I mean, they're the best.
While maintaining the kind of like the design and aesthetic.
Right. And, you know, even before we started working with them, you know, via the podcast, they were the best. So yeah. I'm pumped to be in this space, you know, doing this because it's something that I genuinely use, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One last thing before we jump into today's episode, but since we want to help shout y'all out, we want to put y'all on. We got these amazing guests. They're able to talk about all their amazing projects and shed some light and some knowledge. We want to help you guys plug your own projects to our audience. So in honor of our guest, Danny and GIPHY and GIFs, we want you to, if you DM us your favorite GIF to @musicbusinesspodcast on Instagram, the funniest gift, the gift that keeps on gifting and giving and makes us laugh, we'll pick a winner and then we'll DM you back and we'll plug whatever project you're working on that you want us to plug on the show. So send us all your fire gifts only.
Hashtag fire gifts only.
@Music Business Podcast. All right, now on to the episode.
Danny, man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Of course. I would say the last time that I directly learned something from you like this situation was when you spoke in front of the music business program at NYU, and I was still there.
Yep.
So where were you at then? Tumblr?
I was at Tumblr then, and I wasn't doing anything music related. I was working strictly with app developers. And I remember, you know, sometimes that experience is one of those things where I think about that sometimes when I'm going to bed, just truly how embarrassing that was, because I remember not having anything prepared. I'm pretty sure every other, you know, speaker had like PowerPoints and stuff, and I was just going to roll in and just start talking, and that's what I did. And it was in my mind, what I remember to be a disaster. But I'm glad you're saying you learned something, because I think the crux of what I was saying is like, oh, you guys don't need to work in the music industry after this. Like you can do whatever you want. You know, just completely ignoring the fact that this is a music business program. But
yeah, the funny thing is, I always thought that maybe they would ask me. I didn't really care if they did, but they asked one of my coworkers, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "What the?"
Like they didn't even go to NYU.
They even go to NYU. I was like, "Bro, what?" But anyway, I digress. So before
George's
you
still
at,
salty out here.
I'm like, yo, NYU hit my phone. Stop asking me to donate money and tell me to speak. I want to look cool. But before that, you were at the Orchard.
I was at the Orchard. Yeah.
What was your role there?
And can you describe what the Orchard does too for some people that might not be as familiar?
Good
For
idea.
sure. So the Orchard is, I think they are the largest independent music distributor in the world. They, in the past, they dabbled in other fields such as like, film, but that part of the company has since rolled into another company that because it was actually a pretty substantial business, but primarily they do music. I was actually hired to work on their YouTube team. And this is when, multi-channel networks were a big deal. And like, we were essentially helping artists that were signed to distribution deals, take advantage of us and our expertise of like, how to monetize videos on YouTube and do them in a way that is, way more scalable than what they could do. So I was kind of in charge of onboarding a lot of these artists to, take part in those services. But then, that kind of played out the way it did. And, I kind of got bored with that. But, the Orchard was really interesting during that time because it was expanding so much. And so I'd actually, while I was at NYU, interned for the digital marketing team over there. And someone on that team was going to start the digital advertising department there. And this was, in really kind of like when those like agencies started popping up of like, media buying agencies within the music industry. And there wasn't really, from what I remember, a solution for like independent artists to take advantage of like basically agency services, just due to, as everyone knows, how small the budgets are. And like, it's, even for like the biggest of artists, they have relatively small budgets compared to like, other industries. But like for independent artists, we're talking about people who have like, anywhere between like $300 to like, at most maybe like $5,000, $10,000 to spend on the release. There wasn't really a solution for these people. So it made sense for the Orchard to make a department specialized in, I guess, like catering to these needs and like, starting these artists off with like capturing their own data and their first party data and like, utilizing things they have like their email list to target people across all like the platforms that we advertise on. So me and my boss, started that department and that eventually scaled and became a very successful part of their business.
Right. Yeah, I see them a lot on Music Business Worldwide now. Yeah. It's funny. I think you were the only person that I knew that worked there. So like occasionally I'll be reading like an article and be like, oh, Danny used to work there.
Yeah.
Like that was sort of how I was introduced to it in some respect. When you started working there, it was one of the first times I like had heard of the company.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. I mean, like I think back then, and we were just talking about this before, but like the company just from that point to now has grown so much. And I don't think, especially coming out of the music business program, a lot of people were too interested at working in a distributor. And to be completely honest, like I didn't really know what that entailed, but like the Orchard was a very special type of, and all distributors are kind of like this now where it's like they offered multiple, just like multi-services, from marketing to advertising, so on and so forth. But it was a very like modern, in a lot of ways, like cutting edge for that part of the industry. So I wanted to work there, and I don't think anyone else I knew worked there. Yeah.
Word. So at GIPHY, what do you do now?
Yeah, so GIPHY, right now, I guess my official title is the director of partnerships.
Sounds pretty big.
Sounds big. It kind of it does encapsulate a lot. I primarily work on the content side with a lot of basically the entire music industry, which is the reason I'm on this podcast. So that basically entails working with all the labels, management, agencies, PR, you name it, anyone who deals with the artist to onboard artists to the platform to help them utilize GIPHY to, help expose their brand across all the places that we're integrated whether it's, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it. Giphy at this point, I think we reach 700 million people every single day, which is, I think I calculated it's like 10% of the world's population or something, which is insane to think about.
What?
Because we're integrated in so many places and we deliver, I think, like 10 billion pieces of content every single day. So,
I mean, I personally use GIFs in texts all the time via Giphy. So,
I mean, even if you think like on a personal level, if you're someone who uses GIFs, it's like, it's inside of text, but then like you go over to Instagram stories and you're like, all right, I'll use a GIF here for like, to decorate my story. And then like, I don't know if you're, I know you not personally, but like, I don't know everyone's situation here, but like if you're on like Tinder or Bumble, like GIFs are huge on those apps too. So it's like,
no, I don't.
Right.
For the record, I am in a relationship and I am happy.
There we go.
Hope my girl heard that.
Okay. Why'd you just wink?
I didn't. Right. You about to get me in trouble, Sam. As soon as I saw that smirk on your face, I was like, "You about to say something that is not gonna be good for me." I know you too well. This is a co-host relationship here.
It's okay. We got that on camera. Right. But yeah, so it's like Giphy in this way is like it just follows you everywhere you go, whether you're every social app you use, every messaging app you use, like we're probably have some sort of native integration in those places. So I guess to bring it all back, like my job is to help these artists expose their brand in these places that people are having conversations. So basically empowering them to turn their own brand and their own image into tools for communication.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's amazing. Yeah. So when you are speaking with different music industry partners, different labels, managers, artists, what do you feel is one of the biggest benefits the biggest benefits of an artist and why they should really consider deploying content across Giphy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because I was thinking about this today where like my job has gotten so much easier since the day I started. Because I remember when I was starting at Giphy, it was before stickers had launched inside of Instagram and Snapchat. So like, now everyone wants stickers. So the sell is really easy. Mm-hmm. And people intrinsically just kind of understand it, right? Mm-hmm. Because they are users of those platforms. Right. But, back then it was like I think we were integrated inside of like Facebook and Twitter and a lot of the big ones that we're in now, but like the idea of utilizing GIFs as a digital strategy or part of your digital strategy was kind of foreign to people. They didn't really understand how that worked. So I think like the biggest thing, and this is taking me back to those days, it's like, it's really about owning your brand across the places where you might not be really paying attention. For a long time, GIFs were just things that existed on Tumblr and just like people would save to their desktop, right?
Yeah.
But like we all saw the impact that platforms like Tumblr actually had on, the music industry, right? Like, groups like Odd Future and Tyler and, all these huge artists kind of came out of those platforms. And a lot of that was driven by, visual media, including GIFs. So, Giphy kind of created a solution to be able to take that and then utilize that in a more practical way where it's like you're using to communicate to other people. And I think like the biggest benefit, once again, is controlling your brand across all those places. So instead of just, having random things pop up when you search for an artist name, you want to be able to control what shows up in those places because our numbers kind of don't lie. Like people are for sure searching for artists and searching for, even reactions where your image might pop up.
Right.
Those are opportunities where you can, be the face of whatever emotion or expression people are searching for. And I think that's kind of the biggest benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it also keeps you top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, I think the more people see your likeness, the more they're going to listen to your music, obviously, right? So like Smino has really good GIFs.
Yep.
Like I use Smino GIFs like a fair amount.
Yep.
And I obviously have been fortunate enough to work for him, but I'm sure the people that see those GIFs, the ones that use them regularly, they might turn on Black Swan or Black Jupiter after they use them and send them via text message, So to me, at least it seems almost like digital advertising as well, like sort of like mini billboards,
Exactly. And it's not, it's funny you bring up this Mano GIFs. Also Masego has GIFs too.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, I think we got those in 2016, 2017 at South by. We had a house down there where we were capturing GIFs with artists. But like those have been around so long and I just randomly see those pop up on Twitter. And it's like, I can't sit here and be like, this had X amount of impact across, but like we can see how many views it got. I'm pretty sure all of those GIFs combined have like hundreds of millions of views. But a great example of this is like one of the first, I would say, big artists we shot was Lil Yachty. I remember we were invited to the Tower, the Capitol Tower, like probably 2017. And this is before he like really popped off, to just like capture GIFs with Yachty. And like we were vaguely aware of him, but like we didn't really have anything in mind, but like we just shot on like a white wall basically and like added some post-production and
He's
like
probably a natural at GIFs.
Oh my gosh, he's incredible. Like, I mean, he ended
Born
up
for GIFs.
He was honestly born for GIFs, but now he's like in some ways like he's kind of like the face of all of these like reaction GIFs that we've shot with talent since then, because like people have 100% seen and recognized those GIFs on specifically platforms like Twitter, where GIFs are shared everywhere. So
right.
So yeah, I think that's a great example of like here's someone who put their own brand, their own image, and their own personality in GIFs, and like 3-4 years later, it like has blossomed into something where it's just like you can't avoid your face in this very kind of all over the internet, but like in this very specific way.
Right.
Where like I think people, even if they don't know who Lil Yachty is, they would take a look at him and be like, I've seen that person before.
Right.
And granted,
Great.
he has a very unique look, but like I think the GIFs have definitely helped with that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you're really just creating an opportunity for people to engage and amplify with the artists, their brand. I think even for one of the artists we work with, Blondish, have created like tons of GIFs, and not only around her, but also she's very big advocate of eradicating single-use plastic, and has even like created an organization. So she got a bunch of other DJs throughout the dance house music community to commit to updating their riders to be single-use plastic free and trying at other venues to sign on. And in tandem with this like big launch where we had hundreds of different DJs posting across their socials, we also launched some GIFs. And there was a really strong reaction from the community of them all sharing those GIFs that were like bye plastic centric.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes along with like, things artists do that are more in line with like brand partnerships. But like, I know that's not necessarily brand, but like cause-based activations. That's really awesome too, because it's not necessarily promoting Blondish, but it's promoting this cause that's also, but it's like tied back to her brand. Right. So, there's so many different and unique ways that the platform has been used, to basically accomplish anything from like, announcing the name of an album to like announcing when a TV show is coming back. You know?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, what are some unique ways that you think artists can use GIFs to their advantage? Obviously, that sounds pretty cool. Announcing a TV show or an album. What are some other things that you've seen?
Yeah, so just kind of expanding on those a little bit more. So we worked with Maroon 5 and their management too, and we've worked with them actually for a lot of different things. But to when I think the album name was Red Pill Blues, it was 2 albums ago, I think. But when that came out, they actually commissioned. So GIPHY has a community of artists that we just call GIPHY artists, and this oftentimes gets confused with music artists, but it's actually like animators, so on and so forth. But we have a community of them that we've curated over the past, I don't know, however many years, of some of the best animators in the world. And so they commissioned a GIF for each of their tracks on the album to represent the track, and then announce the track listing on Twitter with those GIFs.
Oh, shit.
And that was really, really awesome. So that was a super creative use of like, here's a format that like people can share. That's basically you can find anywhere. But at the same time, like, we're using it in like a very unique way that like maybe other people haven't done before. And then once again, like the TV show, some show on Adult Swim, I think, created a sticker announcing when the show was coming back. And I don't think they told anyone, but they just naturally let it pick up when someone searched for the name of the show. And I thought that was super creative because it's just like, let's just see what happens, right? Like,
and it worked well though.
Yeah. It's like, let's utilize this platform as something to be used for like discovery.
Right.
And then another great example is the band Years and Years. They're signed to Interscope, but the agency WMA created a bunch of stickers that were like, I want to say they were kind of like hieroglyphics for some sort of like unique language that they made that allowed fans to unscramble like this sort of code that they posted on Instagram stories and then use those stickers to like reveal the actual names of the track. So that was super wild, and fans really love that. But it's kind of what I tell everyone who wants to use Giphy is like, it's kind of, at the end of the day, Giphy is just a search bar that has access to all this animated content.
Right.
So it's like, it's kind of up to you to decide like, the creative ways in which you can utilize this platform and this format. We've kind of laid the groundwork and like, made it easy for you to like share this stuff. It's, all the really crazy and fun activations and ideas are, come from the minds of the artists or, the managers or whoever it is. So, yeah.
So for artists that you obviously want to start making GIFs themselves, is it more like the more GIFs, the better? Or is it, is quality involved in making them? Or, when an artist puts out a music video, we make GIFs for the artist most of the time. But what if they just put out a video on YouTube, kind of like, we have some videos with JPEG where he's talking with other artists about his album. That was part of his video series for YouTube. Is it worth making GIFs for that situation too? Or is it,
I think it depends. I mean, if your goal is, if you think you're going to cut up a video into GIFs and then just have it naturally start popping up on Giphy, like chances are, unless like, because Giphy is so reaction and expression based, like chances are it's not gonna, if it's just like an interview, it's not gonna really like take off.
Right.
But like you have to identify the key moments within, basically being mindful of the content that you actually are putting on the platform, right? It's not just like, that copy and paste sort of method of like, hey, we just need to get everything done and like, just put the same thing on every single platform. It's more about like being thoughtful of like, hey, this is going to work on Giphy because like, this is a really good like smile or a wink or whatever it is. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of GIFs have kind of dictated a lot of the video content that people have made because, we've spoken to artists or just brands even in the past where like they have video content or they're making ads or they're making, whatever it is. But instead of making the video and then making the GIFs later, they want to have the GIFs in mind first, make the video so that like each shot is like a perfect GIF or whatever. And then that way it's like, it serves its purpose as like a great video, but also like we pulled these great moments that are going to perform really well on Giphy.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's really intentional actually. It's cool.
So to get super tactical, how do our listeners that are either artists or managers go about getting their GIFs in the phones of millions?
Yeah. So Giphy is the way that I guess the whole Giphy ecosystem works is when you search on Giphy, like, or rather when you upload something onto Giphy, if you're just a regular user, it doesn't actually get indexed in our search. So you actually have to have like a verified what we call like a brand channel on Giphy. And there's,
clout.
Gotta have clout. Because I mean, we want to make like we want our search to be high quality and we want like, we don't want necessarily the same Drake GIF popping up like when, because everyone's probably making those when
keep
like
the GIFs curated.
Yeah, I got to keep them curated to some degree.
Fire GIFs only.
Yeah. But I mean,
hashtag fire GIFs only.
I mean, people can still make them and like, what a lot of people do is they'll make GIFs or use GIPHY to like host their GIFs and then like post them onto Reddit, and we'll see these random GIFs start to take off that have like hundreds of millions of views, and we're like, where's this all coming from? Obviously it's like Reddit or like some random, you never know where, like some random forum or whatever. But yeah, for the ones that get indexed in the search, they got to be official. But if anyone's listening to this or watching this and like you're an artist or whoever, and you are interested in getting something like that, there's instructions online of like how you can apply for that stuff. But
when the GIF does get really popular though, is that also a reason in order for them to get that brand channel check mark, or is it more like, oh man, how did this happen? Damn. And then you just move on,
It's more like that, because a lot of that stuff is like random GIFs that people will make. They're like, some funny video of like my dog, right? But it's not like, they're not necessarily a brand. So it's like we want to, the brand channels are specifically designated for like brands, whether it's an artist or like a consumer brand or whatever.
But naturally, if one gets more popular, then it'll be index.
Or sometimes, but it really depends. That's you'll have to bring someone from our editorial team on about that. But I mean, primarily I deal with the partners like artists who are verified, who like, are, I want their content on the platform and searchable. So that's kind of, how artists take advantage of that. Even if you're not verified, there's still a lot of ways that you can, take advantage of GIPHY. Just because you can't necessarily tell your fans to search for it, you can still utilize GIPHY to, post those GIFs on all the places that we are integrated. It's just not going to maybe, show up in that search bar immediately. But yeah, so I guess that's the technical aspect of how it works.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Does the team at GIPHY have uncanny GIF selection in communication? Like sometimes there's always like the perfect GIF to reply, or just gets you laughing. Is it
just imagine your Slack channels are only GIFs. Yeah. It's the only way you guys communicate with each other.
Exactly. I mean, it's obviously, right? And like, we look at GIFs all day, so we definitely, when someone can like
connoisseur.
Yeah, like when someone can like speak really well, and you're like, I like the way you speak. It's like very flowery, whatever. And it's just like feels nice. It's like that's the way we communicate with GIFs. It's like
like the way you GIF.
Yeah, the way you get is it's even to the degree of like we'll like poke fun at like if someone sends a GIF that's like considered basic, right? Where it's like,
that's like next level.
But it's just funny because it's like come on, it's like you work at GIPHY, like you gotta dig deeper than that, right? It's like deep cuts only, no hits.
Oh, that's so funny, bro.
That's amazing.
But like, so I mean, some of the ones that are just like popular within GIPHY are like, man, I like. We need to show the world one day because it's just like because we've been exposed to just everything the internet has to offer. Like we've found some serious gems.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's so funny. I'm like just thinking about somebody sending a GIF and then somebody saying back, "Hey, yo, that's a basic ass GIF. You work at GIPHY. Like, what are you doing?"
I mean, there's a specific bar that's set right when you're. It's like, come on. It's like you can do better than that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I recently did that for you guys know the GIF of like Jonah Hill freaking out like with his like he's like screaming and he's like, I think it's from like take him to the Greek.
Get him to the Greek.
Get him to the Greek.
Yeah. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, but it's like you can't send that.
It's like, damn, everybody knows that. Yeah. I guess if I knew it, it's not deep enough of a cut because I don't work at GIPHY.
Yeah, I mean, so but people should be able to send whatever they want. So it's just another way to make fun of your coworkers.
No, I like it. Super exciting. Are there any like having worked with so many different entities in the music industry? What have you seen, and even just working at Orchard versus working at GIPHY now, when it comes to like high performing teams, both teams you've worked on as well as teams you've worked with? What are some different traits you've learned?
Yeah, like what are the characteristics of a high performing team?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I think it's just like, I mean, I think it all first of all, it's like there has to be some like baseline level of respect for one another, right? Because if you don't respect your coworkers, it's like it's really tough to be motivated to do something that like benefits the team, right? So just baseline level of respect that like everyone possesses. Beyond that, obviously communication. This is just going to be like kind of platitudes. Like communication is obviously key. Like you got to let people know the information they need to know. For me, what works well is, I thrive in like a place where there is some level of autonomy. Like obviously no one likes to be micromanaged, right? It's like, I think a lot of a team success goes back to the manager and like who kind of oversees that team. And luckily I've been on a lot of teams where like the manager trusts the people on that team to do their work, to do it well, and only really checks in when it's absolutely necessary. So I think like there obviously has to be a level of trust. What else makes up a good team? This almost seems like the cherry on top, but like it's good to like one another.
Yeah. No, I think it's key.
And like, want to hang out with someone on your team outside of work. We used to have this thing at GIPHY where back in the day, like back when I got hired, our CEO Alex would say he would have something called like the road trip rule or something, where like we only hire people that we'd want to go on like a road trip with, or maybe it wasn't a road trip. It might've been a band, like a tour van. It's like, we only want to work with people that we'd like go on tour with.
That's a high bar.
It's a very high bar, but back in the day, we're still relatively small, but back in the day when it was like, 60, 70 people, like, it's important, like the chemistry is there, and like not only are people good at their jobs, but like we like these people we work with. So I think that can only help, right?
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Right. I think also reliability for the teams that I've seen. I think if you can depend on people, it goes a long way. I've seen situations, luckily not with teams that I've worked with, but teams that I've seen kind of deteriorate because they couldn't rely on each other, and one person ended up getting more work because he couldn't rely on his peers to help him with his work. So he felt like in order to get it right, it would be best if he just do it. And then some people don't have as much work because of that. So like you're saying, having a good manager is really important to help realize when that's happening and kind of break that down and make everything spread out more evenly. So
yeah, and I think like in tandem with that, it's like you just kind of have to be honest with yourself and honest with other people, because like the worst thing that can happen is like, passive aggressiveness starts building up, and then it just starts ruining like, everything that you've built, starts, crumbling basically. So like, it's really, I think, having honesty and like really just, as much as I say like being able to check in with one another is like, or like having a manager that checks in only when needed is like good. It's also good to like, have a check-in about like, hey, this is what it is, or like, here's the situation on hand, or if like there's any problems or issues that arise, like, you just have to be very like transparent and like make sure everyone's on the same page, because that's when you get into issues of like, hey, this person's not reliable, but like, we don't want to talk to him, or like, we can't do anything about it. Cause that's not really beneficial to anyone.
What are some, now that you've worked in music and tech, what are some things that you think music could gain from tech, as in like, what music companies could gain from tech companies and vice versa?
Yeah, that's a good question, man.
The only thing I can think of is the free food and coffee. I'm like, but I also have never worked at a tech company. Every time I visit though, it's always like, yo, you want a sandwich? We got free dinner. Yeah. I'm like, what?
Y'all do
that here? Why don't we do that in music, man?
It is definitely like a night and day in that regard. But aside from that stuff, oh man, like, it's really hard because I would say the majority of my career has actually been more like in the tech world than in the music world. Like I've been music adjacent for most of it, but it's like previous to GIPHY, I worked at Tumblr. So it's like, these are both tech/media companies that aren't really music companies, even though music could be a big component of them. And really my only work experience from music, like specific companies, is at the Orchard and, all the internships I did back when I was in school. But man, if I was, what could tech come, or what could they learn? I think like, oh man, this is such a hard question.
I mean, from an outside perspective, other than the food and stuff, I think at least in what I have seen, you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Is that music companies tend to, I don't want to say hustle a little harder, because that's kind of like a diss, and that's not what I mean. But I think it's not necessarily what can get done between 9 and 5. It's like it's more results oriented. I'll say that. And I think what I've seen at tech companies, and I guess this makes sense, is that it's a little more process oriented. And in doing that, it's also tending to employees in a different way because of it. So the mindset's a little different,
Yeah, I think, it's also, I totally agree with a lot of that. I think like it's tough to group all companies in the same vertical and into one category. Cause like, obviously, a company like GIPHY is, very dissimilar in a lot of ways to a company like Google, just by sheer, scale and scope, whatever. But yeah, I totally remember just having way more of a, not saying I don't grind now, but like it's a different kind of grind in the music industry where like, you're doing everything. And then after work, you're constantly answering emails, you're going to shows, and you're basically just in some ways working around the clock. I still feel like I do that because I work adjacent to the music industry now. I still feel like I have to, kind of be at that level too, because I'm working with a ton of people that do that day in and day out. But I do think like, there's a bit more of like I don't know what the word is, like maybe intimacy in music, where it's like, on average, chances are you're not getting compensated as well at a music company. You're like, people don't work in music for the money, right? They work in music because they want to grind to be able to like, promote an artist that they truly believe in, or just even get close to the music industry. They grind to be able to go to those shows after work, even though it's technically work. But like with tech, it's a little bit more, once again, depending on what stage the company's at, but with tech, it's a little bit more, not like that. I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible. It is more about like, it's about the platform, right? It's not necessarily about, art. It's more about like, but not saying that's not important. It's more about like, scaling something, growing a platform or a business, and then like reaching as many people as possible. And that's the same thing as like in music. You're trying to reach as many people who like, dig your music as possible, but like, it's just different.
Right.
So I think that's kind of like the big difference is, they're just different industries.
Right. Yeah. You guys obviously work with artists, like you said earlier. How do people get on your radar? How do you decide who you want to invite in or not invite in? Obviously you don't decide if you don't want to invite people. But how do artists, that could be listening, get involved with GIPHY somehow?
Yeah, I think like so if you're an artist and you want to get your stuff on GIPHY, once again, like there are plenty of resources online to figure out how to do that. But
how do they get in the office?
Oh, in the office, like physically in the office.
How do they become a partner? How do they meet you?
Got it.
You know.
So I think what you're getting at, and what a lot of people like, I spend a lot of my day answering is like, we do a lot of original content creation, right? And like, partner promo is a big thing for labels, for management. Whether it's like you're going to GIPHY or going to Instagram or Complex, you name it. So for me, I do have some degree of power over, and maybe power is not the right word, but like influence over, like, hey, this person's really up and coming. But it is like, there are a ton of stakeholders internally that decide, are these people, or is this an artist that we want to bring in, with keeping in mind that like, we don't just bring people in the music vertical in, right? We're also working with like, actors and, athletes, and also like once again, our team is pretty small. So like, we only have the capacity to do, X number of content shoots each month. So, but it's a good problem to have that. Like literally everyone wants to come in and make their own GIFs and like, quote unquote, get on our radar. I think just me personally being the ambassador internally for like all things music, it's the same way you guys know what artist is like up and coming, or who's a big artist, who's like, gonna break out. A great example of that is, I think like 2 years ago, it must have been like 2 years ago when Brockhampton started popping off, and like they released the Saturation mixtapes, and like I was just like, and I knew they were like big on whether it's Tumblr or like these communities where like GIFs were also like, the Venn diagram was like Brockhampton and like and GIPHY, like there's a lot of overlap there. But that was before they signed to RCA, so there really wasn't a way to kind of reach them. So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind, but like they were always like, I was like, this would be a perfect fit for GIPHY to create content with them, and it aligns with our brand and what GIPHY is, and from what I can tell, aligns with their brand too. So like fast forward to last year, we were able to finally get them in and like, create a bunch of content. I think I checked today, it's like that stuff has like almost 1 billion views now. So I was like, oh yeah, that it did make sense, right? Right. So a lot of that stuff it's just what's buzzy in the music industry, and also like just the big names. Like, of course, we're gonna want to get like, we had like Demi Lovato come in. Like, of course, we're gonna have her come in, right? Because she's, she has a huge fan base. So it's a mixture of just a bunch of different things that we look out for, and if it fits into like what we're trying to accomplish internally, editorially, and then if it fits into our brand, and yeah.
Cool. There's a new GIPHY video product, isn't there?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So GIPHY Video is something that's been in the works for a while. Launched last December. It is basically GIPHY's foray into video, the video format. So obviously we've been kind of like with GIFs and with stickers, we've been kind of like circling this, basically circling video. I mean, like, all right, we're almost there. Why don't we just like dip our toes in? So actually in 2018, November 2018, we put on a film festival, and that was kind of we just kind of did that to test like what this stuff would look like. The premise of the festival, I think everything had to be like 18 seconds or less. It could include sound, and it was meant to be like just short form, basically entertainment, or just like content. That went super, super well. So we're like, wow, we should maybe explore what this looks like. So GIPHY video is basically that, with I think the videos can be like 30 seconds, but it's basically that, and it's available to all, once again, verified partners to start uploading content to the platform. We launched with a handful of big partners, including we work with Geffen Records to do something around the song that Marshmello, Youngblood, and Black Bear had. So we work with them to create some basically like a short version of like the actual video. Like we were on set at the shoot of the video and like capturing content with them. Another partner was the Chicago Bulls. They made some really cool stuff with their mascot and also just
my guy Benny.
Yeah.
Chi-Town represent.
Yeah. You would love the video.
I don't know. Check it out.
You got to check it out. And then we also, I believe, had BBC America, and then I want to say Universal Pictures, one of the studios, and I really hope that was right. Yeah, I think it was Universal. But basically, we had a lot of big partners on board, and they're really excited. And yeah, we're just kind of that's actually a big thing that we're working on this year to see kind of where we can take that, how we can expand that, how we can make that grow, and just like give another outlet for partners to like upload content to that they might not necessarily have a dedicated platform to upload stuff that's this kind of like within these parameters.
So how do consumers engage with that?
So right now it's only on the .com and on our app. But like, with everything that GIPHY does, like we've built out massive distribution networks for both GIFs and stickers.
Right.
We also have a GIPHY Stories feature, which like we started building out a distribution feature network there as well within like Samsung Bixby, which is like I believe like the side screen experience that's built into like every Samsung phone.
Right.
So, I have no doubt in my mind if this is, if we keep on pushing, like we'll find a way to get this into more places too. So
that's exciting.
So yeah, so that's kind of a big priority for us this year.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Danny, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah,
it's fun being here.
Coming on, man.
Yeah. See you, everyone.
Peace.
Yo, low key, using GIFs for an album announcement or a TV show announcement is low key kind of genius. Like I took a mental note of that in my head.
Yeah.
I think there's so many different forms of media now that we often take advantage of them, and I think GIFs is one of them. So it was great hearing Danny talk about how people actually use it and how musicians that he's worked with actually use it to their benefit in a real way. I'm not gonna lie, when we got on the, when we spoke to, and this is, a lot of reason why I'm glad we have him on, is because I myself don't know how to really use GIFs to their full advantage. So hearing him talk about that and also hearing how artists have done it, now I got things, in my head about, maybe, announcing a tour that way or something like that,
Yeah.
Not only that, but GIFs are like short, and they appeal to shorter attention spans. So I'm wondering, how if you announce an album via a video or something a little more long form versus a GIF, what the engagement is, and how many retweets, for example, you get on Twitter, that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
It got my mind running for sure.
For sure. If there's one thing I learned, it's that Jordan used basic ass GIFs. Damn.
Yeah, I gotta get my GIF game up, bro. I didn't even know I could be insecure about that. Now I'm like, God, I gotta get my GIF game up.
Well,
and it was funny. He brought up the Jonah Hill GIF, and I was like, yeah, I know that one. Yeah,
that's right. Go to.
Like, no, I probably shouldn't have said
that.
Yeah.
One other thing that comes to mind that I really like here is that when it comes to GIFs, I think artists, there's this interesting turning point when an artist can really go from being this kind of underground act to like a mainstream act. And a lot of people speak to the phenomenon of this artist seeming like they're almost everywhere, whether it's scrolling across different social media, looking at outlets, turning on the TV, whatever it may be. I think like GIFs and like just seeing people randomly pop up as you're scrolling through with GIFs is definitely part of that. So, even one of the artists we work with, Blondish, has like 5.7 million GIF views, which is like, seems like a lot. I think she has a long way to go before that like phenomenon occurs, but to the extent that you can lean into that can help create that moment, that turning point.
Yeah, for sure.
As always, thank you guys for listening, and don't forget, if you send us your favorite GIF, we might give you a plug on next week's episode. So DM us your favorite GIF to @MusicBusinessPodcast, and
just don't let that shit be basic.
Yeah. Fire GIFs only.
GIFs only
To @MusicBusinessPodcast on Instagram, and we'll gladly plug your project if you make us actually LOL. All right, we out. Peace.